Up, and I'm here with a gentleman from California, Burbank, who's coming up here to do a show called I'm Not a Comedian, I'm Lenny Bruce. Hello, Ronnie.
Hi, how are you, David?
I'm very well. You're doing the Chutzpah Festival.
That's true, and you'll find out pretty quick. I'm actually not from Burbank with this voice, but I live here, so that's good. I
Nice.
excuse my sound. I'm like 10 days into a cold. I can't believe it. So,
Oh no.
yeah, there's something going crazy here in California. Everybody's sick. Everybody's sick. So,
What?
I feel okay today, though. I'm good. I'm
I,
good.
uh, 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 I blame the economy. No, I have no idea.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And now, hey, so what drew you to Lenny Bruce?
So it's crazy. I just looked, I had to double check in my email because I'm like, how long have I been with Lenny? And so 20 years ago, this a wonderful comic named Charlie Brill. He came to me and he said, "Hey, do you know who Lenny was?" And I get to have lunch every Wednesday with these guys, Charlie Brill, Jack Burns, all these old school comics. And he said, "You know who Lenny?" And I'm like the kid. And he's like, "You know who Lenny was?" And I said, "Well, I know his name, but I'm too young. I know Carlin and Pryor and these guys." He said, "You remind me of Lenny." And I was like, "Wow, really?" And he's like, "Yeah, there's something about you. You remind me." So, long story short, he said there's a one-man show called Lenny's Back, and boy, is he pissed. And he said, which is a funny title. He's like, "Why don't you do the show and I'll direct it?" I'm like, "Listen, I don't know. Lenny would be 80 at this point. That means all his friends, a lot of them are still alive." So anyway, he talked me into it. It took 2 years, but he talked me into it. And then once I started to read, truly, and then once I started to research it, I said, "Wow, this guy, I mean, he was so important." And so we ended up doing the show, ran for 6 months. It was a great hit. Put it down for 5 years, did it again for 6 months. Wonderful again. And then one day I woke up and I realized I feel like I'm leaving something out. I feel like, as amazing as that show is, I feel like because I didn't have the rights to the material, so I was like talking about the bits as opposed to doing the bits. And
Okay.
so at some point I was like, I can't do this anymore. I owe Lenny more than this. And so I got the rights to the material in the book, How to Talk Dirty and Influence People, Lenny's autobiography, and I wrote my own, and that was 8 years ago. So,
Nice, nice. Now, one of the tricky things about Lenny Bruce, I'm obviously with the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, that wonderful
mhm.
TV series that I lost interest in as it went along, but I loved it when it first came out. I actually had Lenny Bruce as a character in that show. So, but I think for younger audiences, of course, people might not recognize. Like the name, I'm a teacher, and often I name drop people, and they're like, "Who?
Oh
Who?"
yeah.
So, what's to draw people in with the story if they're not necessarily a Lenny Bruce fan? That's
Well,
kind
it's interesting. Mrs. Maisel really introduced Lenny's name to an entire generation of people, which I'm very grateful for. They're doing something very different than I am. Mine's a bit more edgy and, in your face, but it's Lenny. But I'm grateful to that show big time. So, I guess the best way to explain it is Lenny was a guy, he was the last person arrested on stage for word crimes in the 60s. He died in 66 at 40 years old. If you care about free speech, First Amendment down here in the States, that's a thing, as you know,
of.
in these parts. But also, and it's a hot topic right now, to say the
Well,
least.
well, yeah, I was just thinking. I think we're going to see more people being arrested off stage.
Oh, well, that's crazy to think. Like, guys like Carlin and these guys, they were censored but not arrested. So and Lenny was arrested and found guilty of obscenity and sentenced to 4 months on Rikers Island for words in 1964. And so it's crazy to think that, in some ways we've come a long way, in other ways we haven't.
I have a reputation for being sort of controversial.
Directed by Chicago native Joe Mantegna and written by Ronnie Marmo, who is also the starring actor. It's called I'm Not a Comedian, I'm Lenny Bruce.
This is the dirtiest show I've ever done, man. Totally atrociously blasphemous, just the way I like it.
You can see his love for Lenny, and that was really nice to see. And it's a whole different take on Lenny that we haven't seen.
If anyone has found this obscene, you're full of blah, and I hope you never get your blah again.
But Lenny was great. He was the first guy to really hold a mirror up to society and speak on all those taboo subjects people didn't want to talk about. So, and he wasn't like taking a side. He was like, "So what do you think of this? Let's examine this, you know." And so I think it's really important for young people to come and learn about Lenny and see the guy who kind of put it all on the line for us to get to do what we want, you know.
Yeah, I guess it is sort of a thing, more so than ever to kind of go, especially in the United States, we're not quite there yet, hopefully never in Canada, but where you kind of go, well, people are being, stand-up comedians are being taken off TV, like late show talk show hosts are being taken off TV.
Wild. Wow.
Um, so yeah, it's that if we don't remember history, we're condemned to repeat it, kind of thing. So
Well, we're right there right now. I mean, it
yeah.
seems like we're right there. It's crazy.
And now he's also not toxically, but he is edgily funny. Like he's very funny. And now that you actually have his jokes, I'm sure there's a lot of laughter in the show.
I always say it's people think they're coming to a stand-up show, and I go, let me clear that up for you. It's a complete tragedy, but it's the funniest tragedy you'll see. There's a lot of laughs, but it's a tragedy. It's not a comedy. This show, we really take you through it, and there's a ton of laughs. You know, it's funny when I was up in Toronto, and I don't want to offend any Canadians. I promise. I promise. But when I was up in Toronto, you know, there's a joke that I've heard, and one of my best friends is from Hamilton, Canada, and I always tell him the joke. It's like, you know, how do you get 100 Canadians out of a pool? You just say, "Can you please get out of the pool?" Because it's so nice. At my show, I need more than nice. I need involvement. So when I was in Toronto, I'm doing the show. I did a couple of performances, and they're staring at me, all these very polite Canadians.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I need some interaction. You're my scene partner. I need you, you know. And at the end, they stand up to their, you know, and I get a standing ovation. I'm like, where were you for 90 minutes? You know. So I'm hoping Vancouver brings the heat because it's a funny thing to do a one-man show, especially when there's those bits and all the routines. And I'm hoping there's a couple of people in the audience who will get everybody riled up.
Nice. I maybe you should have a sign in the lobby or something like that, or
Funny.
when they do the land acknowledgement at the beginning, I just have someone and say afterwards, it's okay to talk to this actor while he's doing his show.
You'll know this, you'll know the spots in the show when to participate and you'll know when to watch. But it's okay to laugh.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Oh yeah, well that is a Canadian thing too. Like I'm an actor as well, and I remember doing a show and it was touching on really edgy. It was called The Reindeer Monologues, and it was touching on really.
Oh, I did that. I produced that show in
Nice,
my
yeah.
theater group. I love that show.
So, you know, Cupid, when he talks about the abuse, one audience thought that monologue was hilarious. And the very next night, the audience thought that monologue was so tragic. And it actually threw me because they were so quiet during it that I was like, oh my God, I've lost my words. Like,
You played Rudolph? That's fantastic. That's
yeah,
a great monologue. You
yeah.
know,
The
it's
root of
funny.
it, yeah.
That's what's beautiful about live theater is that you kind of don't know, and I think that's why theater's the best because we're all having this shared experience right here, right now. But when you do a show like this, when you really don't have scene partners, it's you for 90 minutes. You do kind of rely on a little participation and at least energy. But yeah, there was very polite in Toronto. They were very polite with my comedy. It was like I was like, "Come on, let's go," you know.
They're like,
So we'll
"Shh,
see what happens in Vancouver.
he gets arrested, you know, just don't laugh at him."
Exactly, exactly. What he's saying right now, I think it's funny. I'm not sure. So let's just be quiet and watch.
So is the biggest change in the show that you have access to the actual material that he said, or did you also restructure the show a little bit?
Oh,
Because
I completely restructured it. It's a very different show. Spoiler alert, I start the play dead naked on the toilet.
yay!
And it doesn't let up for 90 minutes. Now, for all the people who are like, I don't want to see this guy naked, it's very tastefully lit. You don't see anything. It's more of a suggestion. It's just beautiful, you know. And we start we start the show right at the end of Lenny's life, and I kind of work backwards. And
Oh,
it's really cool. And I weave the bits throughout the show, and I try to make them all mean something in the show. I don't just do random bits to try to be funny. I really strategically pick the bits to help tell the story, and also just show his genius and how ahead of his time he was. And so it's a very different, edgy show. You will learn more about Lenny Bruce than you have in any other project that I've ever heard of or seen, because, he was a father and he was a husband and he was, a comic and a satirist and he was a lot of things. And usually when I see Lenny Bruce, you know, projects, I usually see the bitter, angry man at the end of his life. And there's so much more to this guy. I mean, so I hopefully you leave. The biggest compliment I get, and I've gotten from a lot of people, including people like Patti LuPone and all these big stars, when they leave the show, they tell me I was up all night Googling everybody. I wanted to know more. And I'm like, that's the best you can tell me.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and I think, based on what you're saying, they're not just leaving with knowledge of Lenny Bruce. They're also learning about the fragility of democracy, the fragility
Oh,
of being able to speak and having that freedom to just speak, and that makes it undoubtedly an incredibly powerful experience.
well, the third act, there's this big epic courtroom scene, and people have visceral reactions. Sometimes they'll like say things and yell, and it's not an
What the
interactive part in the
Canadians will.
show. I'm not worried about that, but there's this like reaction, like, people sometimes verbally like will say things and shout at the stage, and because Lenny's fighting against the court, the judge, and basically the whole system
Wow.
in this scene, and it's really, like you say, it's quite an experience. So, are you going to get to see it, David?
I'm going to do my darndest. I'm producing these Jesse Awards and all that right now in Vancouver, so I've got it in my calendar. I just have to
Try
make
to sneak away for 80 minutes. I'll go fast for you. I'll go fast.
You're wonderful. Okay, this is your chance to pitch the show. We'll wrap up here, but you're going to pitch the show. You're going to look right in your camera and you're going to tell people why they should not miss. I'm not a comedian. I'm Lenny Bruce. Ready, set, go.
Okay, so I'd love you to see the show. I'm not a comedian. I'm Lenny Bruce. I don't know if you fine folks in Canada have noticed, but we've got some issues down here, and Lenny Bruce is exactly an incredible talking point for what's going on right now. And if you care about stand-up comedy, if you care about First Amendment, not sure, if you care about just having the right to do whatever it is you want to do in your life, legally, of course, then come see this show. I think if you love theater, I think it's important. It's a beautiful piece, and this will be my 469th performance in Vancouver, but who's counting?
So you must know all the words now.
No, I don't. And that's the point. I don't know all the words yet. And if you're an actor, maybe you'll appreciate this. I literally get on stage every night and go, what am I saying?
Right.
So if you want to come see me walk on a high wire with no net, come see the show. And we really would love to have you there. It's a very special, special experience.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Ronnie, so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. We're looking forward to the show at the Chutzpah Festival, and you have no time zones, so you just come on straight up, and we will see you soon. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, David. Thank you.